Okay, well, I'm taking a break from the Caterpillar generator set today. I'm going to be working on this injection pump here, an injector. This is for my Fairbanks Morse 36A, single cylinder diesel. Now, I want to make this video to explain a little bit about these injection pumps. These are fairly common in the old diesel engine world. A lot of different manufacturers used American Bosch equipment, and between manufacturers, between models, there's not a whole lot of dissimilarity, if that's a word. For instance, this pump right here from a Fairbanks is very similar to the pumps that I have on my WIT, or WITty, if you want to call them that, diesel electric plants. And I know that there's a lot of guys working on those right now, and this video may be of some help if you're kind of concerned about taking your injection pump apart, either because you're having trouble with your fuel system, trouble with your engine running, or you just got the engine and you want to make sure you don't do any damage. So I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this pump. I've already taken it apart once, just to make sure this video goes smoothly. So a couple little friendly advice right off the bat. Although these pumps are, very common on old engines, parts for these pumps are not common at all. You could easily spend more than your engine's worth, or more than you paid for your engine, in buying parts or buying a pump if the injection pump is missing. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of very, very finely machined components inside this pump. So on the disassembly, cleanliness is not all that critical, but make sure you don't lose any parts and don't be destructive. On the reassembly, cleanliness is very, very critical. So let's go ahead and take this pump apart. Not very large, but there's a lot going on inside there. So take off the banjo bolt. This is the fuel inlet. Just two big copper washers there. This one's fairly clean. No rust in there, that's good. And it smells like old fuel oil. So you take this, this is like a little stop lever here. Pretty much when the engine will be running, the governor linkage is connected to this side of the rack here. Pulling the engine in adds fuel, letting the rack back out reduces fuel. So pretty much when the engine's running, it'll be at a midpoint. So you just yank the rack back, close it off, and let go of it, and just like a little stand here to hold the rack at no fuel position, because the governor is trying to pull it to the full fuel position as the engine slows down. But anyway, so I can just slide that pin out of there, pull that off. Not all engines have this, but it's a handy idea. It's a handy idea. Easy, just piece of wire there. So take off the bleeder screw here. This is to bleed air from the system when you're filling it with fuel for the first time, or if you do a filter change or something like that. You can see the screws just drilled through there. You might be able to see the light through that little hole at the bottom. Just that lets out to a little hole on the side here. So take that out. We could take the delivery valve out, which the delivery valve is really nothing more than a check valve. So I'll take the top nut off. There's going to be a spring. Don't let the spring fall and roll away like just happened. Sometimes you'll find there's going to be some shims in here as well. Not all the time, not in this case. But keep that spring. That spring's directional too, by the way. You see it's got a small hole on this end and a larger hole on this end. The smaller hole is just there so that the spring keeps centered on the delivery valve itself, right here. This is one of those finely machined and lapped components, so when you take it out, be very careful with it. Don't damage the sealing surface, which is the tapered surface right here. Let me get in close to you. That tapered surface there. But like I said, the small hole in that spring just fits right on the head of that there. So take that out. Delivery valve seat can come out. Might be kind of difficult to get. Okay. Again, the seat, very important you don't damage that, and very, very important you don't damage this bottom surface here. This is a lapped surface that mates with the plunger or barrel, or not the plunger, the barrel, or the sleeve rather, inside the pump. You do not want to scratch that. Set that down there, and we'll go on the bottom here. This surface here, this plunger, is what the cam tappet acts on to actuate the pump. And there's a retaining ring that holds that in. So go ahead and pull that out. Oftentimes, which and it happened in the case with this pump, this barrel here, plunger, was stuck in the fully up position, so fully actuated, and it wasn't stuck terribly, but that's commonly what happens with these. So I'm gonna have to be a little bit careful here. I'm gonna just put a rag over the thing. There's a little notch right here, so you can get a screwdriver or something behind that ring and just kind of, let me use just a different screwdriver, just kind of wedge it out so it doesn't go flying in my eye or something. I just put a rag over it. See what I'm doing first. Okay, just get underneath of it and just work your way around it, and it'll pop right out. Like that. Okay. And if your pump is not stuck like this one is, the plunger will pop out, and you can just flip the pump upside down a little bit, pull the barrel out like that. It's just hollow. Then you can pull out the plunger itself if you can. Apparently I can't. There you go. The plunger and the spring. Take the keeper off, pull the spring out, and then move the plunger. Okay. Another finely machined and honed component that you do not want to damage. All of this surface right here has to be a nearly perfect fit into the barrel, or else your pump won't pump. It won't develop pressure. Be very, very careful with this. Actually, I'm going to set that aside. Okay. And you can look up inside there. There's going to be a washer that the top of the spring sits on, and then the barrel which rotates the plunger. So if you turn the pump upside down, those two parts should fall right out like that. Put a washer with a recess in it for the spring, and this is the, actually, I don't know what that's called. You can call it the control sleeve if you wanted to. This is what the rack acts on. This is the pinion. So now we can slide the rack out. Get out of the way here. Okay. Oh, look at the guinea hens real quick. What are you guys doing? Goofy things. Anyway. So, right, the rack and the control sleeve or the pinion. See, it's got the cut teeth there, getting the shot. So as the rack gets pulled in and out by the governor, it moves the control sleeve, and the control sleeve moves the plunger, or rotates the plunger. So I'll put that aside. And the last part to come out is the actual barrel that the plunger rides in. That's held in place with a single locator screw, and in a lot of cases you can see they put a piece of lead in there in a drilled boss in the pump, and they just squish the lead and it holds the screw in place so it doesn't wiggle out. So let me take that out. Okay, and the barrel's ready to come out. Usually there's, almost all the time they're stuck in there. Not too hard. I don't think I'm going to be able to press it out with my finger. Just take a soft end of a screwdriver here, plastic end, and just tap it a little bit. Okay. And there's the sleeve, or the barrel. Get another clean rag here. Okay. There's the other mating surface. Clean part of the rag. Okay. That surface there is very critical. It mates up with the surface here on the delivery valve seat, as well as the bore of this plunger is very, very critical. The tolerances between the bore and the plunger right here, I don't even know how they're measured. They're measured in, I don't know, microns or something smaller than that, because it's very, very tight tolerances. The only thing, there's no seal really. This assembly here, this barrel and plunger, will develop 2,500 to 3,000 psi depending on your particular application, with no seal at all. Just the fact that the plunger is a good fit in the barrel. So it's very, very important to keep those surfaces protected. That's why it's very, very important to have clean fuel in a diesel engine. Okay? So that's the disassembly procedure. And if you're a little, concerned about going back together, all of the components that need them have timing marks, or witness marks if you will. So there is a mark right here on the rack, and a corresponding mark on the pinion. Where is it? Yeah, right there. See it? So when you reassemble it, you get those pieces lined up. Sorry. And there's a mark on the control sleeve that mates with a mark on the plunger. Right there. So the plunger's got to be in the control sleeve in this orientation. Okay? So let me clean all these components up, and we'll reassemble it. Well, no. What we'll do next is take the injector apart. Okay? Okay, let's take a look at the injector now. Again, like I said, on the injection pump, I already took this apart just to make this video go a little bit more smoothly. Got the washer, sealing washer here that goes on the tip, which seals it up against its holder. So, one interesting note about these systems is that most people who are familiar with diesels will know that typically an engine's got a feed line to an injector, a high pressure line, and a return line or a leak off line. In the case of this engine, it just had this fitting here. It's just an elbow with it looks like an inverted flare. Really, I didn't take it apart all the way. I didn't take the flare nut off, but it's just clear, There's no restrictor in there or anything. So, and it didn't have any line going to it. So I guess any return fuel would just leak on the ground. Interesting note again that I've got two other pumps, two similar pumps on my two WIT/Witty diesels, and one of them, when I bought the engine, actually had a pipe plug in this hole, and the other one I think is set up like this, where you could have a return line, but it's just an open fitting. And on the tanks for those units, there's no return line to the fuel tank itself, so it's kind of strange in my mind. But the one that doesn't have a pipe plug in it doesn't leak any fuel, so I don't know. These injectors just don't have much leak off. So stop by pulling this top cap off. Not much under there. The inside of these injectors look really good. Like this injector. There's a sealing washer. Usually kind of hard to get off. Spin it off. And then now, one thing I want to stress is, if you're just taking the injector apart to clean it or inspect it, and you don't have access to an injector pop tester, or you're not going to actually send the injector out to get calibrated, I wouldn't recommend messing with this up here, this adjustment screw and lock nut, because that is the setting for the cracking pressure of the injector. So you'll see that what that's about in a minute. You can take that off, take the whole assembly off. Don't loosen this nut here. See, there's flats right here and right here to put a wrench on it. It's like a 17mm wrench or something like that. There's going to be a spring, and there's another piece up inside there. Let me set this down. There you go. Just like a little spring top, because the tip of this adjustment screw right here sits in that little rest there, and that's what pushes on the spring. So we'll set those aside. You got the spring, and you got the same thing on the bottom. This here, well, obviously it's not the exact same thing, but spring acts on this, and this is what pushes on your pump element, or your injector element rather. So lay that out. Looks something like that. Okay. So we'll pull the lower body and the injector off. This is usually on there pretty tight. And then we have another thing. You've got a polished or honed or mated surface right here that you've got to take good care of. Okay, that's another sealing surface. You don't want to scratch. You don't want to Scotch-Brite it. You don't want to wire wheel it. You want to buff it with a rag and elbow grease. Don't go crazy. Okay, out of the lower injector body. This is the actual injector nozzle right here, nozzle assembly. Okay. When you service an injector like this, when you overhaul it, this is what gets replaced. There's an American Bosch part number on there. Which this might not be so hard to find if it's different from the Witty. The Witty diesels, I know the nozzles for those things are almost impossible to come across if you got to rebuild one of those injectors. Okay? Again, this here, a mating surface to the injector body. Don't scratch it. Nothing abrasive. Then you can pull out. Actually, I can't push them. You see there's the tip right there. Sometimes you can push it out from the back, your fingernail, and get to budge. Yep. Okay. There you go. Alright. No abrasives on this surface here. No abrasives down here. These are all finely lapped, machined, mated, whatever you want to call them, surfaces. Very, very tight clearance, much like the injector plunger in the barrel. Okay. Get a white rag so you can see that. Okay. It's very important that when you put the injector back together, that this area right here is clean. If you've got carbon in there or buildup or anything of that nature, that's going to ruin the injector's spray pattern. And if the injector doesn't atomize the fuel properly, it's going to be very, very hard or not possible to start your machine, start your engine, allow your engine to run. Same thing goes for the seat and the nozzle here. That's got to be clean. Now it's a pain to clean down there, but it's got to be done. Usually what I do to clean that is I take just one of these little rags here, just cut it up in such a way and twist it, put a little bit of gum cutter on the rag and soak down there, and just shove the rag down the hole and spin the nozzle here and just let the rag work its way around in there. Pull out any dirt I can. This here is just hold the rag and work it. Don't go crazy. Do it until it gets clean. Alright. So that's disassembly of one of these old Bosch pumps and injectors here. A lot of cleaning to do yet. I put that together all wrong, didn't I? Yeah, I did. There you go. So, a lot of cleaning to do, and I'm going to have a separate video for reassembly, and we'll actually do some work on the engine. But I hope this helps somebody out someday. Alright, thanks for watching.